Hello, everybody. How's it going? This will probably be the last time I do this for a while, at least when it comes to BMYRT. I'm definitely fatigued at talking and really, really sick of the CVR. So I just wanted to do one final one, unless something major happens in the next 6 weeks to wrap everything up. So I have a few things I want to talk about. The first is the BMY CEO's comments this morning. I don't take a lot of credit. I don't read a lot into him saying that he looks forward to lysocell approval in 2021. I think he was just listing all of the stocks that, sorry, all of the, I got a text. He was listing all of the pipeline drugs that are coming in the next 12 months, and he just lumped them all together. I don't think that was a Freudian slip. Even if it was approved, the last week of December, it wouldn't launch until next year. I was actually on I was listening in on an investor relations Bristol Myers call recently today, and she didn't even know that he said that, and you shouldn't read into that language. I'm going to talk about that investor relations call too in a little bit, and what I got out of that. The rest of what Giovanni said, look, I said it yesterday, he was never going to say that there was an inspection scheduled. He wasn't even asked if there was an inspection scheduled, by the way. But he was never going to say there was one, because there isn't one, right? They're not going to physically go to Houston in the next 5 or 6 weeks. His answer was as good as you would hope it to be, which is, it's not dead. I just don't know what people expected him to say. Regarding whether they would amend the terms of the CVR, he would never say that, ever. I mean, ever. So I didn't expect any different answer from there. It would, if it was going to happen, it would happen towards the end of the year, and it wouldn't be just extending the date. It would be for lowering the payout. They would be getting something in return if they did that. So that's what I thought of the Bristol Myers CEO's comments this morning. I really didn't think much of it. I was actually happy that he didn't just destroy the CVR, which I thought he would do. The reason why, I think the main reason why the CVR has gone down today and yesterday is there was a virtual FDA inspection summit yesterday, and FDA officials were there, but also a ton of industry people. And there was very mixed messages about virtual inspections at this summit. So without reading the transcript verbatim, I'll just tell you what was said. On the good side, an FDA official said that they are going to be rolling out virtual inspections in the coming weeks to specific situations that warrant it. So we know that it's coming in the next couple weeks, I think it said. On the negative side, there was a panel that had a Bristol Myers employee on it, in addition to other people from the industry. No one's from the FDA. I think one person was a former FDA official. And the Bristol Myers employee flat out said she does not think virtual inspections for pre-approval drugs is going to work. And the former FDA official said specifically with cellular and gene therapies, he didn't think that virtual inspections would work, given how important it is to be there. Now, let's be clear. These are not FDA officials, and Bothell was already inspected. So this is just a secondary plant. So I think that's why it went down, and why it kept going down today from those comments. Because if you have the view that I am, which again, I don't know how you can't be, if they weren't able to inspect the last 6 weeks due to COVID, how are they going to be able to physically inspect the next 6? Then you were banking on virtual inspection to happen. And even though Giovanni said he's very open to virtual inspections, well, of course he's going to say that. I'm open. I've been open to Natalie Portman, dating me the last 20 years, and she's never calls. So that to me doesn't seem like it's meaningful. He has to say that he's open to anything the FDA would do to get this approved. It doesn't mean he has to try really hard to do it. So is it dead? No, I don't think it's dead. I think there's a few different things that could happen in the next 6 weeks. So there was a very odd tweet by the head of the FDA yesterday in the afternoon saying how all oncology is moving full steam ahead and all the approvals they're touting for this year, despite COVID. And it only really takes one or two powerful people to, twist the right screws to get the FDA to do something here, right? This is not some controversial drug that that can't be approved pending a Houston inspection in the future, or making them do virtual. So that's one path, is that the FDA gets pressure in the next 6 weeks, either from some billionaire, hedge fund manager that's a big donor to Congress or Trump, or the media picks it up. I emailed reporters yesterday, and I didn't hear anything back. But it's a good story. I mean, it's the first breakthrough designation drug to have a PDUFA deadline missed because of COVID, and it's an even better story with the $7 billion that's hanging on the line. You can make an argument that Bristol Myers has no incentive to get this through, and I don't think it would be good for the pressure for either Bristol Myers or for the FDA if this was picked up in mainstream press. So, do I think it's likely to be approved by the end of the year? I don't, but I definitely think it's possible. So with that, I sold about 1/3 of my position this morning. It's about a 7% position now for me, and I'll ride it to 0 or to the Holy Land, because I couldn't stay at a 10% position with so much confidence that they can't physically inspect between now and the end of the year. It just goes against everything that I believe when it comes to the physical inspection. So it sucks selling 1/3 of it at 75 cents, but I did it, and my portfolio is in a good position to weather it out, whether it goes to 0 or not. I think I've said many times on here, you have to size this so that you expect it to go to 0, and that you can continue on with your life and your portfolio and whatever, and always assume that it was going to be a 0, because it's extraordinarily risky security. The call today with the investor relations person was rather interesting. The last call that I was listening in on with this person was a week before the PDUFA date, and I did not come away warm and fuzzy at all. It seemed like the takeaway from the call was the best thing you could hope for is a deferral. And of course, we got a deferral. So, I'm kicking myself for why I just didn't listen. But I always knew that'd be the case with this thing. I'd regret it one way or the other. This time, she was cagey when it came to telling us anything, of course, which is the same thing they've always done. But the most interesting thing that was said was they don't view a scheduled inspection as a material event, and we should not expect to hear about scheduled inspections or done inspections. With Bothell, she referenced Bothell and said they didn't tell us it was scheduled and they didn't tell us it was complete. So she also definitely didn't say that this is over, but she's not going to say that, even if they think that. The reason why it's interesting to me is I still believe that even this morning on this conference call, that Giovanni could have said nothing is currently scheduled. And he didn't say that. They never were going to say something is scheduled, because she even said things can get canceled. So I never expected them to ever say, we're doing a virtual inspection 3 days from now. But I did expect Giovanni to say currently nothing is scheduled. Does that not mean that something could be scheduled between now and the end of the year? It could be. He didn't say any of that. He didn't even address it. What he did say was that they're in very active discussions with the FDA. And the part that's really odd to me is, what could you possibly be in an active discussion about if all that is that you have to get physical people into Texas? Nothing to talk about, Call me FDA when you think you can get someone to Texas. I'll speak to you in January or in February when someone has a vaccine. So if they're implying and actually stating active discussions, then maybe they are trying to work something out. And a final possibility is that you really only need one person from the FDA to get in a plane or a car and go into Houston. So maybe they couldn't have done it, but they didn't want to do it the last 6 weeks, but somebody volunteers the next 6 weeks. Maybe somebody is offered $1 million in a Swiss bank account and they go into Houston. So it's not over. And it's obviously a very different proposition at 65 cents than it is at $1.40. The selling pressure is going to be immense, because you have tax law selling and you have nobody that really wants to participate in a true lotto ticket at this point, as opposed to something that had a much higher probability of success, a few weeks ago. And I still think that there's value for litigation, like I said, and none of that's changed. I really do believe that this won't linger past December 31st. There'll be something that happens either through litigation or through Bristol Myers amending and extending. But I have no insight into that. That's just something each investor has to decide on their own. So with that, let me see what kind of questions I got. Gio's terms are clear statement is what he had to say. There's no read through on what they may actually do when they come and cross 1231, right? Correct. Already answered that. Also, this sets up to be approved in Q1 21 based on a vaccine available. And since the major amendment costs 3 months, won't BMY be very eager to do something like significant for CVR holders? You look at all hinges on the major amendment. You can make an argument that even without the major amendment, this still wouldn't be approved by December 31st, right? It's not true. But let's say no major amendment, there was an August PDUFA date. Is FDA really going to delay it for 5 months after the August PDUFA date? No, I don't think so. I think they would have figured out a way to get an inspection done either virtually or physically. So the major amendment killed this, not COVID, or the major amendment and COVID killed this. But if you can convince a judge that the major amendment was the reason that killed it, not because of COVID, because of what I just said, especially, by the way, if it gets approved in just a few months after the PDUFA date, you could say it would have been approved a few months after the PDUFA date in August. I think you have a real case, but what do I know? How could FDA commissioner tweet full speed ahead as to cancer drugs the day after missing Lysocell PDUFA? Does this mean he does plan to do something to get this done quickly? I looked at his Twitter feed and he tweets a lot. It's obviously he has a staff member tweeting a lot. It might have no connection, but I think there has to be a read through that he's at least trying to say, don't worry about Lysocell. Look what we've done for you lately. It's crazy he would say full steam ahead, but obviously this is not full steam ahead. I mean, they didn't have to go this path, right? They could have approved this without inspecting this facility or done a virtual inspection, and they went this path. So is he just not killing it because he kills it ahead of time and opens more to litigation? I wouldn't say that he says it's not going to happen, but Giovanni could have said there's no scheduled inspection. Giovanni could have said we're working really hard with the FDA, but currently the COVID situation's out of control in Houston, and we don't know when it's going to be rectified. Didn't even mention COVID, I don't think, in his response. He might have, but yeah, it's the same thing as investor relations, right? I can't read into them being, not fatal on the phone because they're the same thing. They have no incentive to be overly negative or overly positive. They just kind of want to give us the facts, like they say, because they don't want to be sued by misleading one way or the other. Is there a reason that the inspectors couldn't be waiting to get vaccinated before resuming in-person inspections? Emergency use designations coming in a couple of weeks. Oh, for sure they could be waiting for that. The problem is, it's my understanding these vaccines are 2 shots, and I think they need to be taken a month apart. So, you're not going to have the FDA inspectors vaccinated until January with the second shot. And in fact, you could argue that makes it very bad for the CVR because FDA now does have a clear path to when they can get people to do inspections. If there were no vaccines, then they probably wouldn't be able to get this inspected until February, March, or April, or maybe even later with COVID. So, FDA might just be saying they're going to wait the clock out till the inspectors are vaccinated. Doesn't FDA have any young people working there? Are they pretending they were all 75 years old with heart disease and diabetes? I mean, look, it's kind of ridiculous. I'm not just saying this as a CVR holder. Of course, it's illogical that the FDA, this isn't Ebola. There's definitely younger people that can wear, PPE, and the plant is like a very sterile plant. They probably test everybody in the plant daily. So of course they should be able to conduct this inspection. And if it was Idacel, I think they would have, since Idacel is first to market. I think that they've decided that even though this has a better safety profile and keeps people out of the hospital, in a time when hospitals are overrun, ICUs are overrun, Lysocell versus the competition keeps people out of the hospital. So, I mean, it really is an unbelievable story for a journalist. And I really encourage anybody that knows anybody at the major papers to, get it on their desk, because it just reads terribly. Having worked there, I still think there's something behind the Bank of America note. Let me address that. So the Bank of America note, I just lost where he wrote that. The Bank of America note said they were 60 to 70% likely to be approved by the end of the year. When I saw that, I was really bullish. And my friend emailed the analyst, though, and at that time, he hadn't even spoken to investor relations. So I don't know how he could possibly be at 60 to 70% by the end of the year, given all the facts here. Maybe he's just not that involved, and he just decided to throw out some numbers. He's a good analyst, and he has a long relationship, I think, with the company. But I don't know. The analyst is probably biggest BMI bull in the street, has spent significant resources pumping company, including hosting a whole week of calls and publishing reports. He called it Bristol Week. He's always one of the first two analysts to ask questions on the call. It's hard for him to believe he just goes out of limb with no reason. If any sell-side analyst has access to priority access, it's him. I mean, he wrote back. He could have been lying, but he wrote back and said he didn't speak to the company, or maybe he said specifically investor relations. But yeah, he could have more insight. Sure. Matt, thanks. Really appreciate all the time and effort you put into doing these live streams for us. Hope your position pays out. Thanks a lot. I really appreciate it. I obviously wish that this went better. I would like to point out, I'm not going to address any more negativity on here, but the only other two stocks I've talked about on here were Tiffany and Groupon. And Tiffany, I said, was the best merger arb I've seen in years. And I made that personally a 50% position, and that played out exactly as I said it was going to play out. And Groupon is surging today. And I also, it's my second biggest position. Well, it's tied as the biggest position with Dell. So, no one's going to bat 1,000 in this business. So, I don't know what to tell you if you think that you're going to bat 1,000, and also, not put yourself on the line and actually tweet positions and ideas and stuff, and go on freaking YouTube and talk to people for no reason. I don't get paid for this or anything. There's no ads running when you start watching these videos. I think that's it. If there's anything else I could think of, any final thoughts? I don't know. I think the situation is nuts, and I could buy more tomorrow if it went to 50 cents or 60 cents, and I woke up feeling better. I keep changing my mind about it daily. I think it's a much better buy if anything positive happens going forward. So, like, if you hear about the FDA being okay with the virtual inspection, and it goes up a lot, going forward, I think the hurdles will be much lower if we could find out that there's actually an inspection that's going to happen virtually. I don't think we'll ever know that. There's a rumor that Dan is spying on the webcams at the Lonza facility. That's a joke, everybody. Dan is not spying on the webcams at the Lonza facility. But that would probably be the only way we would know if there was a virtual inspection set up or happening. Couldn't the active discussion with the FDA be around the possibility of FDA changing their mind, approving without an inspection? So I don't think that's going to happen, okay? I don't think FDA would have missed the PDUFA date if they were then a week or 2 or 3 later going to waive the inspection, because the PDUFA dates matter to them. So if they were going to do that, I think they would have done it already. I think their cover, the way they could have cover, is they would do a virtual inspection. And then they could say they inspected, Thanks for everything. Opinion on the major amendment with CMC data mission. Was this a decision made by Celge employees or BMY? Doesn't matter in discovery since BMY is ultimately responsible. That's a good question. Well, they didn't submit the application until the end of December. And that's a great question, actually. I didn't really think about that. Bristol Myers only owned Celgene for a month, maybe 6 weeks, when they submitted the application in December, which does make it a much harder hurdle to prove that Bristol Myers is ultimately liable for the major amendment. For some reason in my mind, I was using the February acceptance date and thinking they had the application for a while. Now, Idacel, they owned Celgene for 4 months. But yes, the truth of the matter is 99% of the employees working on the application were Celgene employees. So you'd have to believe that the Celgene employees, sabotaged it, which I do not believe. To be clear, I don't believe that Bristol has sabotaged either of these applications. I don't believe that 1% believe it. So that conspiracy theory, I never believed. That doesn't mean a lawsuit can't happen or that there can't be discovery and a judge can't find that because of this, material error, that Bristol doesn't have to pay. It's a harder hurdle when they only own the company for 6 weeks, though. They probably had virtually nothing to do with the application. Thanks go way back to SRP days when I bought based on your conviction. Even SRPT, yeah. I never thought I'd have another thing like that. I don't even do biotech anymore. I mean, this is the only biotech position I have. I thought this was much more of a low risk, kind of binary arb that I did, thinking it was a bet on approvals, since everybody thinks these drugs are approvable. So I didn't think this was controversial in any way. Can a judge read force majeure into a contract like the CVR, especially something as unforeseen as COVID? I don't think so. I mean, it has to be in there, right? And it's not in there. So I don't think a judge could insert it. But again, I'm not a lawyer. I can assure you one thing. There's so much money on the line here that there definitely will be lawsuits. And what happens with them will have to remains to be seen. Any other questions? So yeah, assume I'm trading the security. I'm not going to do a YouTube every time I trade it. It's very unlikely I would sell the rest of it here, but I definitely could buy some more at some point. If I got enough conviction to buy more, maybe I'll do another one of these things, but I'm totally exhausted. And, the reason why I have to lock the account is because I don't want to be public with my trades, because it brings out the worst of humanity, and it's already starting on Twitter. So it's like, it's hard enough losing money. You don't want to have to do it publicly and have to deal with the peanut gallery who contributed nothing in their life, coming after me. And I'm not referring to anybody in particular, by the way. I'm just saying the random person that does something like that. Biggest loser employee. The CFO was standing to make a few $100,000, but he makes like $10 million a year. So I never thought, and also the 2 board of directors members, I think each would make a few $100,000s if this went through. Why do you think they won't be able to inspect Texas just because they haven't done so far? For example, is there a reason to do Bothell inspections late in the process, which is also unusual? That's a good question. And it's a really good question. So one of the biggest bear points on the CVR before Bothell was inspected was I and my friends could not figure out, if they didn't do Bothell by August, September, why on earth would we expect them to do it in October? And we never could come up with a good answer there. And guess what? They did it in October. So, and I think the COVID related stuff in Seattle was probably a little bit better in August than it was in October. A little bit, it got gradually very minorly worse, I think, in October and September. So why is that? So my answer with that, and was at the time and is now, is that they wanted to do it as late as possible into the review process, because I don't know, they were hoping for it to get better. So they did it 6 weeks. I thought they'd do it as early as a month before approval. And the difference here is that they did it then to make the PDUFA date. Now that you've missed the PDUFA date, I don't know why you have any sense of urgency to get this done, especially when the COVID situation in Houston is much worse than it was before. The only thing you could hang your hat on is that the inspectors were busy with vaccine stuff, and they are still planning on inspecting the facility in Houston because they consider it mission critical, and it's not due to the health of the employees. But that goes contrary to what they told us. What Bristol told us, it's about the health of the employees. They didn't bring up the vaccine stuff. They haven't brought that up since September. So it's definitely not unheard of that an FDA employee will go into Houston and inspect. It really isn't. And someone who knows the FDA way better than I do, that hasn't sold his position, he's been doing this for decades. He thinks that the end of the year thing is real. He says the FDA wants to get a certain number of drugs approved every year, and they love to trumpet the number of approved drugs. And they usually make a push for approvals in the end of August, in the end of December. So, it's not unheard of that this gets approved December 21st or 22nd or whatever. And if they were going to do it then, they still have many weeks to do the virtual inspection and get it done. So will you update us if you hear anything good? I can't follow you on Twitter. Yeah, I'll do a YouTube if there's something, if there's news, but the only news that there would be is a virtual inspection that was scheduled or done. And trust me, you'll know it because the stock will go up like 200%. Why do you think the open air did that? Please look at the questions from us all who have been on these YouTubes and allow us to follow you on Twitter based on the content of the questions. Thank you very much for your insights, time. It's just really hard for me to accept new people. The way Twitter is set up is that they don't let you search for people that are pending following you. So I have had a locked account for like 7 years. I have thousands of people that are pending following me. That's not a brag, just the truth. So I have to scroll through all thousands to get to one person. So it's hard to do it. That's all. If you want to follow me, I can't make any promises at me. And if you have a long Twitter history and you have a picture on your account and it's obviously on a second account, and you have an active account where people I know follow you, or at least a few people I know follow you, I'll probably accept you. I accept anybody that comes from a reference or someone that I know. Thanks for doing these. Really great, all of these. Good luck. Thank you. Legal questions, but curious if you think a scheduled inspection will be material information, forced disclosure by BMYRT or not. Normally, no, but this is a unique case. Well, I can answer that. They told us it's not legally material information disclosed. IR told us that today. They will not disclose if his inspection is scheduled, or period. So look, they really could be discussing with the FDA right now virtual inspections. There's no reason to think that they aren't. But then you have to ask yourself, why didn't they do it the last month? And the best answer I got for you is it's a bureaucratic organization, and maybe they needed to miss the PDUFA to see the blowback. And maybe, I don't know if they're getting a lot of blowback, but they had to miss the PDUFA first, and then now they're getting on it. Like I said, that FDA employee yesterday said that they're planning on doing pilot programs in the next couple weeks. So we know that they're going to do some virtual inspections for NDAs in the next couple of weeks. We just don't know if it's going to be something this serious and this complex of manufacturing process. Anything else? I have really enjoyed doing these, even though I don't like doing them when I'm losing money. And I really enjoyed the back and forth with the questions. So I'll keep doing them in the future for sure. I just don't want to do them for the CVR anytime soon. And unfortunately, other stocks I own aren't as interesting. They're not as controversial, and they don't really lend to the drama behind this. Do you think what BMI might do is proportionate to how soon after 12/31 approval happens? January 10th versus March 15th? It's a great question. I have no idea. They're not going to do anything to be nice to us. It would be just to heat off litigation and come up with a way to save a lot of money and not have to go through the litigation process. But January 2nd is the same thing as a year later, right? It's a contract. It has to be approved by this date. So, I mean, a judge might not think so, but it's just the letter of the law, and it's what the contract says. That's how it works in a contract for a merger. If the outside date's November 22nd and you get approval November 23rd, you're still out of walk. All right, logging off. Take care, everybody. Have a great week.